Jay Lang.
Yo, it's your boy Jay Lang. Hey, check this out. If you're a business owner, if you know some type of artist that wants some exposure, tell them hit me up in my DM or call me on my phone 662-392-6318 and we can work something out so we can get you exposed. All right, y'all, man. We got a real special guest in the building today. Appreciate y'all tuning in with me. We got Judge Carlo Palmer. How's it doing?
Doing well. How about yourself, Jay?
I'm good. I'm good. I really appreciate you taking the time to come through. For those people that don't know about you, could you tell them a little about yourself?
I'm Carlos Palmer. I'm born and raised, as I said, native son of Greenwood, Mississippi. I went to Greenwood Public Schools, Bankston Elementary School, Greenwood High. Left Greenwood High, graduated with honors, went to Tougaloo College, where I majored in English pre-law, got a BA. Then I left Tougaloo and went to the University of Mississippi School of Law. Graduated in 2002 and went to the Court of Appeals for 2 years, worked under the Honorable Tyree Irving, who's from LaFleur County. Worked under Perkins law firm for 3 years here in Greenwood. Decided to go out on my own, establish my own practice, Palmer Law Services. And I actually taught for 4 years at LaFleur County High School, where I taught history, U.S. history, AP U.S. history, economics, and government. And I've been in private practice since 2007. So I have an office here in Greenwood, an office also in Grenada, Mississippi.
When did you decide that you wanted to get into doing the lawyer thing?
Well, just like a lot of boys in the neighborhood, you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life. I started off actually probably about first grade, wanting to be a police officer. And I decided, my parents, they were teachers, and I went from police officer to want to be a teacher like my parents. Your parents are generally your first role models in the household if they're present. So I wanted to be a teacher for a minute, and then I had a conversation with my parents about options as far as careers, and they asked me or invited me to broaden my horizon and think about other avenues I could look at as far as a career. Two of those were being a doctor and a lawyer. I had no lawyers, no doctors in my family, so I didn't have a reference point. But my father was councilman around that time, and that was in politics, of course. I had an interest in politics because my dad was in politics. I decided to look at going into the legal field because I felt that the legal field was more conducive in trying to establish a political career. So from about the age of 13, I had made up my mind that I wanted to be an attorney, and I've worked diligently since then to achieve that dream.
Okay, wow. So you pretty much had it all put together. So your parents was pretty much in that spectrum.
Yep, yeah, they were a big influence in me pursuing that as a career.
What are some adversities that you had to face along the way?
When you say adversities, are you talking about education? Or are you talking about life? Or
Yeah, that could be anything, couldn't it? Yeah. Look at you being a lawyer.
just being me, just being me.
Okay, let's talk about some of the education adversities that you had.
I was very fortunate in my educational career. I've always been a perfectionist. Being a perfectionist, you always try to put your best foot forward and figure out how you can try to maximize the level of success in whatever avenues that you are setting forth as goals in front of you. Um, One setback I can look upon reflecting on my life educationally was when I was in law school at the University of Mississippi, which a lot of people call Ole Miss. There were, in my incoming class, about 12 African American students out of about 120, give or take. And it was known amongst us that generally about a third of the African American students would not be there for the next year because of uh, academic issues, whether self-inflicted or otherwise. So, I took that with a grain of salt, did my thing. Did not do as well as I thought I was going to do my first year. In fact, me, myself, and this friend that I had from Jackson State, we actually ended up making an F out of our torts class, which, I mean, that's the lowest you can make. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around getting an F out of this particular class because I had never made an F in my life, and it wasn't
Hmm.
like I didn't study. It wasn't like I was partying or anything like that. Uh, what they did was they would put a list of the grades and the student IDs next to the professor's door, and you could know what your ID was. You go down the list. Well, on that list, there were only two Fs in that entire class of 40 students, and that was myself as well as my friend that went to Jackson State. And, we just couldn't understand how that happened because he graduated with highest honors from Jackson State. A big shout out to the Jackson State University. So, in any event, we worked, tried to retool some things to get ourselves out of that particular predicament. Unfortunately, neither one of us were able to pull our grades up above a 2.0. A 2.0 was the cutoff point at the end of your first year as to whether or not you were allowed to progress or move on to your second year. So I ended up having to reapply for law school. And my situation wasn't necessarily unique. There were a lot of other, I say a lot of other, there was plenty of other examples of some African American students having issues at the university and law school. The interesting thing about it is in my application to be readmitted to the law school, the professor that gave me the F, oh yeah, the one that gave me the F actually did one of my recommendations to be readmitted. Um, but it was just really strange that out of all these students, the students who were from HBCUs, who sat at the front, who dressed nicely, when
Hmm.
like we dressed up in a suit and tie every day, but we, polos, slacks, loafers, we dressed,
Right.
nicely. And these same two students who graduated with highest honors in from their respective undergrad institutions had this issue. But in any event, I was readmitted. And once I was readmitted, I retooled some things, learned from the mistakes and the issues I had had the previous year, and went on to be successful in graduating from law school in 2002. So, I tell a lot of law school students my testimony to let them know that anything can happen to anyone. You can't just take for granted that things are going to go the way that you expect them to. But also in that lesson is that no matter how much adversity that you face, you should always be willing to step up to the challenge and in the face of adversity, not give up. So easy for us to give up because things don't go our way, but you have to press on and have the faith to do so and let God direct your steps.
Since you mentioned Jackson State, how do you feel about old prime time out there?
Well, prime time is an anomaly, and when I mean anomaly, it's a very different setup from what has happened in the past. I got a chance to meet prime time. In fact, his son, when he was playing with his team in Texas, played Clarksdale High School, and I got a chance to meet prime time as a part of uh, his meeting the community after uh, he and his team had eaten lunch in the cafeteria there. And he really impressed me as a very humble person, very knowledgeable. With the mainstream media and the popularity that he has, Jackson State would be doing itself a disservice if they did not fully take advantage of him being the head coach
Hmm.
of the football team. He brings in so many different resources that other coaches would not have access or be able to. So, he is a very good coach from what I've seen. I think that Jackson State is well positioned to do some great things with him being head coach. And the other thing I really admired about Prime is that he has demonstrated that he's not a selfish individual. He's reached out to Coach Dancy over at Mississippi Valley State and tried to bring in resources to assist him with his program at the Valley. So, it's a very great situation, not only for Jackson State, but for the state of Mississippi to have him in the position that he is present.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. I like old prime time. Yeah, Coach Dancy, he's a cool coach too. Out there, shouts out to Valley State. Tell me this: I was interviewing a couple other guys the other day, Chris Glass, Dietrich Mumford, and I asked them how do they feel about women approaching a man for dating. First of all, are you married?
I am.
Okay, okay. So how do you feel about a woman approaching a man for dating?
That's an interesting question. Traditionally, we were taught, when I say we, I guess, in my upbringing, that, the man should always make the first initiative toward a woman if they were interested in that woman. Times have changed so much since the times that, our parents grew up. And then, they would say, well, you need to meet someone at church or, different places. And, it may not be as appropriate to meet them in certain other places. I don't subscribe to that position or mindset. I think that God puts people in your journey for different reasons. Sometimes you may develop a friendship with a person. That friendship may last, you know, season, maybe a few months, less than a year. You may have lifelong friendships with the opposite sex that may endure for a minute. But just because you have a friendship doesn't mean that's someone that you have to talk to. A lot of times you want to avoid trying to cultivate a relationship with somebody that you are friends with because you may not want to destroy that friendship. Because if things go south, it's going to go south with the friendship as well as a relationship most of the time. But I think that things are so different now. I think that you have to move as you are directed to move, as far as your heart or your mind. Um, women are a lot more assertive now, especially outside of the state of Mississippi. In Mississippi, it's still traditional for the most part, but I don't think there's any playbook as far as how to meet someone. I think you can meet someone at any time, any place, any situation. You have to be able to have your mind open to the possibility of meeting someone under any circumstance. I don't see anything wrong with a woman being more assertive on the dating tip if that's what they wish to do, if they're comfortable with that. Because at the end of the day, you have to make an intelligent decision as to who's for you, no matter who that person is, where you meet that person. You have to be able to mesh with that person's personality. You have to be able to jive with that person's intellect and be able to find someone that has a level of commonality that likes to do some things that you like to do in order to make that relationship work.
What advice would you give to a young man that's thinking about getting married? I guess you kind of answer that.
Well, you have to be very careful with that particular position in life, because what you don't want to do is bring on someone that is not going to be a partner for you. And when I say that, I mean someone that is going to be on your team as well as you being on their team. A lot of times we be in relationships and it's a one-way relationship. It's someone getting the benefits and there's not something being returned in that particular relationship, whether it's money, whether it's access, whether it's, whatever that looks like. But you have to be really mindful as to who you're bringing on board, because if you make the mistake, and of course, there's no guarantees in any relationship or any marriage. It may be good for a minute and then the next is not. But again, you have to understand that people come into your life for a reason, sometimes a season, a lifetime. So Your goal, I think, would be to find someone that will endure with you for a lifetime. That way, there's a lot less drama that comes with being in a relationship with that type of person.
Okay, so tell me this: is the divorce rate high right now?
Well, the last indicators that I looked at, they're a lot higher than they were in yesteryears. People, for the most part, from my standpoint, don't seem to be as committed to a relationship. It's so easy to get out of a relationship, um, even with a marriage. If if you are not willing to endure uh, those hardships that come with sometimes being in a relationship, whether it may be a economic hardship, someone lost their job, or maybe uh, death in the family, or something that happens at work that's stressful. We all go through different life circumstances, and um, a lot of times those things spill over into your relationship and your marriage. So you have to really be willing to grind it out, because it's not always going to be bad. But if you're of the mindset where as soon as something goes bad, you're going to, just drop everything and run off and leave, then again, that goes to whether or not you're fully invested in that particular relationship. And there's a lot of people who are invested in a relationship, but there are some people who are not. And the first, snowstorm that comes about, they're running for the hills. So that's an unfortunate fact, reality to today's relationships, but that's just part of living life.
Okay, and I also asked this question: how much do you think a man should pay for a wedding ring?
Well, the easy answer to that question is what that person can afford. A lot of times in this day and age, we get caught up in trying to be the Joneses, trying to live above our means, trying to impress, other individuals. And, that looks good for a moment, but at the end of the day, you have to account for the financial decisions that you make. Uh, and, if you are looking to invest in a relationship through buying a young lady a ring, then you want to be able to give her something nice, I would think, to reflect your commitment to her. But again, a lot of that has to do with what you can afford. If a woman is overly concerned with the size of a rock on her finger, then you have to ask yourself a question: why is she really in this relationship? Is it a situation where, one of those one-ended relationships? Is she trying to see what she can get out of it? Is she overly engaged and trying to make an impression on her family members, her friends? Why is she in those relationships? So, if a brother can only afford, we say, a bubblegum ring,
Hmm.
but now, if she can afford, a ring, a few $100s, maybe 1,000, whatever it looks like, if that's the best he can do, any woman in her right mind should appreciate his effort. And you never know. It may be a situation financially where he does better later on and he can upgrade. You always can upgrade, whatever ring you have. And a lot of couples do that are in a long term relationship or marriage. But, if it's all about presentation or the size of a rock on a person's finger, that's probably not a relationship that's going to last very long.
So you married, but this is gonna be a hypothetical question. Say you had a baby mama or whatnot, and your son called you. He wants some McDonald's, and the baby mama has other kids. How do you play it?
Well, I saw that scenario posted on Facebook, and what really amazed me, Jay, was how invested the Facebook population were in trying to answer that particular question, or tell their displeasure of, if this guy just got a happy meal for his son, how they would look at it from this angle or that angle, or pass judgment on that particular situation. um you know in life, you are responsible or you should be responsible for who you bring or help bring onto this earth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other side of the coin is this: if you knew that there are other kids there that are not yours, of course, how does that really look for you to feed your son with the other kids looking on? And how does that make the other kids feel towards your son, even though they're siblings, with just your son receiving the benefit of a happy meal or whatever that looks like? Um, it puts your son in a bad situation because, I mean, even though they're siblings, jealousy still is going to play a part because they're looking like, wow, you're able to eat, but we're not able to eat. So, from a standpoint of consideration, I think it is in bad taste for a person to just buy their child a happy meal, if you will, without consideration that the other kids are there and they're probably going to be hungry, like your son is hungry. Um, but, at the end of the day, a person has to live with the choices that they make here on earth, whether from a spiritual standpoint or a practical standpoint. So if that person is good with only giving their son a happy meal and they can live with that, I'm gonna have to respect that person's decision. On the other hand, if the person is more considerate, ambivalent, to give everyone um, a share of the food that he is providing, then that speaks a lot to that person. 'Cause that's something that they would not have to do. That's out of the kindness of their heart. And, again, that's a decision that that person made, and that person would have to live with that particular decision. But it is interesting how invested, again, how many people chimed in on that scenario. It would be even more, it would be even more, um, I guess, from my standpoint, a good thing if people were more invested in other more serious topics that affect
Mm-hmm.
us on so many
Yeah.
different levels, whether it's gun violence or the importance of maintaining a family,
Mm-hmm.
or keeping crime down or improving the infrastructure or any of the things that directly affect us. Because at the end of the day, whether this man provides a happy meal to just his son or provides meals for all five of these kids, it's not really going to make a world of a difference. What really makes a difference is things that actually affects our lives as individuals from day to day. So it would be good if we had people just as invested in that type of situation as they would be in things that really actually matter and impact
Right.
us on a different level in society.
What kind of avenues do you think we can take to stop the gun violence in the neighborhoods?
Well, it's really unfortunate in the times that we live in. I grew up in a situation where, I used to be in the neighborhood and interact with all the neighborhood kids, whether it was Broad Street, Bowie Lane, rode my bike all throughout the city, could go anywhere, and, wasn't fearful of anything happening to me. And I got along with everybody for the most part. But when you are brought up in a culture of violence, and when I say culture of violence, I simply mean that, these kids play video games that are violent. They grow up in neighborhoods that are violent. Uh, they're educated that, or miseducated rather, that by some individuals, that the way you resolve conflicts is through the gun. So, I grew up, if you had an issue with somebody, if it got to a certain level, you may have a fist fight. If that person beat you up, I mean, that was just that person's day. If, the opposite happened, it was your day. And a lot of times you end up being friends because a lot of times you'll be fighting people that you're friends with anyway. But everyone left that situation to live a different and another day. Um, we talk about Second Amendment rights, and I think that every person has a right to own a gun, but what is not talked about is the responsibilities that come with owning a firearm. And some people are just not educated on um, the deadliness, the finality that comes with owning a gun. Because just because you have a conflict with someone doesn't mean that you should take out your pistol and start shooting. Okay, and you have unnecessary violence that happens from a conflict resolution standpoint. I don't like you, or you have beef with me on Facebook. I'm coming searching for you to pump some lead in you, or whatever it looks like. That's crazy. We were brought up to believe sticks and stones would break your bones, but names would never hurt you. A lot of these people now in the modern age, they don't take uh, that mindset. They are out to make a name for themselves or to protect their what they think is their reputation. And it's really unfortunate because these families are burying family members daily. At what I mean, at for what reason? You know, because someone didn't agree with what they said, or someone felt disrespected by something that someone did or something that someone posted. I mean, it's crazy. But we have to do a better job in, uh, from a male standpoint, being more present in our neighborhoods and dictating what is going to happen and what is not going to happen. If there's not a strong male presence in these neighborhoods, it's just going to get worse.
So tell me this: what type of music does Judge Palmer listen to when he rides in the car?
You know, um, as far as music is concerned, I grew up on, well, let me just say this. I'm a very diverse music listener. Okay. I grew up on MTV and then later BET. So anything that's 80s, 90s is pretty much my genre, whether it looks like um, rock and roll or R&B or rap. Um, but I'm going to tell you, when I was in law school, the only station I could pick up was a station out of Memphis, and Isaac Hayes, infamous R&B legend, would be the MC of that particular station, and all they played were 60s and 70s hits. So, be it that that was the only outlet I could have at the time uh, to listen to music, I really gained an affinity for that music. So now I can hear an oldie and be like, "Oh, that's so and so and so, or that's so and
Right.
so and so," and my parents be looking at me like, "How you know anything about that?" But I listen to a lot of different music, whether it's blues, rap, R&B, rock and roll, Latino music, whatever. If it's good music, I'll listen to it. I'm more impressed with lyrics,
Okay.
the investment of lyrical genius to let it flow, creativity of thinking in your
Hmm.
mind. What is this person really saying? Or they're artistic to say one thing, but they're actually talking about this. That really stimulates my mind if I can listen to some words and be like, oh, okay. I see where that person's going with the rhyme or
Right.
the lyrics. The beat is good too. The beat is what is the hook that catches you, that draws you
Hmm.
in. But man, the lyrics, if I got good beats and good lyrics, that's a good song.
Okay, the other day, me and the guy Sylvester Taylor Sly 30, we was discussing who should be held accountable for the children in school with their grades. He was saying that the parents shouldn't be held accountable because at the end of the day, it's on the children to want to do right. So, what do you feel on that?
Okay. So I'm going to talk from the position of a parent, a former teacher, as well as community leader. A child has to be taught right from wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And most of the time, a child learns right from wrong from the house, from the home that they are raised in. that distinction between right and wrong is usually going to be accentuated. It's going to be brought home. It's going to be rehabilitated. It's going to be reinforced by church. You know, you go to church, you learn about God, spirituality. You go to school, you should also be reinforced at the school, right from wrong. In the neighborhood, you know, if you got a neighborhood that is conducive in having community leaders, older people, the elders, like a village, if they're there, they're also there to reinforce a child knowing right from wrong. And all those things, whether it's the home, school, the church, the neighborhood, it takes a village to raise a child. So all of those factors have to be invested in order to maximize a kid's education. If any one of those avenues is lacking, that's less of an opportunity for that child to be prepared once they get to be an adult. If parents not teaching a kid at home, that's bad. If the school system is not providing teachers who are either certified or those who are on track to be certified and provides a wholesome environment for those kids to learn absent distractions of fighting and drugs and things of that nature, that's going to be lacking for that child. It's going to be to a disadvantage of that child. If at the church, they don't go to church, you can't learn anything at church if you're not in the church. But even if you're at church, you have to have spiritual guidance from the pastor as well as the elders and other members of the church. If that's not going on, that's less of an opportunity. In the neighborhood, if you don't have elders that are there to pull a child to the side and say, look, I saw you doing wrong. This is the way you need to go about doing it. I'm gonna tell your mom and make sure she knows what you out here doing, then that's less of an opportunity for that child to be responsible, knowing the difference between right and wrong, and being able to be a good, productive, intelligent member of society.
Is there anything about Judge Palmer that you would like the people to know?
Well, I've been fortunate enough to serve this community since 2005 as the Florida County Justice Court judge, as well as the city of Greenwood since 2011. You know, we have a lot of people that come before our court, and I think that those individuals understand that they are given an opportunity to make amends for whatever they allegedly did wrong. Of course, the law presumes that a person is innocent to proven guilty, and it's up to the state or the person that filed charges against that person to demonstrate to the court beyond a reasonable doubt that that person, the defendant, is guilty of the charge against that person. However, outside of that, we provide a wealth of services to individuals that come before the court, whether it's an opportunity for a lot of our young people to do things outside of being formally convicted of traffic offenses or uh, general criminal activity. Sometimes they may have to write a an essay. Sometimes they may have to do community service. We also offer an opportunity for those individuals that are afflicted by drug, alcohol abuse. We have one of very few, unfortunately, in the state of Mississippi, an intervention court program. When a person has an underlying offense that is drug or alcohol related, they can come into our intervention court program. We test them several times during the week. Generally, they will be in our program from a year to 2 years. And if they successfully complete the program, then their record ends up being expunged of whatever activity they came before the court on. So, you know, I've been very fortunate to be able to oversee that particular program and other programs during my tenure as judge here. And I just think that everyone deserves a fair opportunity, a fair shake when they come before our courts.
Okay, I like that. Have a lot of people seen the positive effects from it?
Yes, I think they have. We have people that always come back and thank us for the service that we provide, especially with our intervention court, that we have helped save loved ones' lives. They have made an individual better, a better father, a better husband, a better family member, a better wife, uh, whoever, 'cause we have men and women in our program. We've had everything from 18-year-olds to 67, 70-year-olds in our program. We've had people who are unemployed, teachers, nurses, military people. We run a full gambit of individuals we've had in our court program. So it's been good to be able to provide a service to the public in that particular avenue, and we look forward to continue doing so with additional resources that we can provide to our population that we serve.
Let the people know how they can reach you and what services you provide once again.
All right. Well, I offer legal services. I've been practicing law for almost 20 years. Palmer Law Services. We provide a full range of services. Primarily, car wrecks is what we do. We also do criminal defense outside of LaFleur County. But we can be reached at 115 Fulton Street here in the city of Greenwood. Office number is 662-459-9111. Again, the office number is 662-459-9111. And as we say at our firm, never settle for less.
J-Lane.
Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.